3 Sinister Stalker tales, spine-chilling encounters that expose the unexplained horrors within. Rachel could feel it in her bones, a darkness creeping closer. With a shudder, she glanced outside her window as dusk draped its eerie cloak around the quiet suburb. The neat rows of houses suffocated under the weight of an unsettling silence. Suddenly, a series of soft, urgent knocks echoed through her small home, rattling her nerves. Heart racing, she brushed a hand through her frazzled hair, dismissing it as paranoia. Who could be out there? Probably just kids playing tricks, she told herself. But that logic barely held water. The knocks came again, more insistent this time. Each thud a reminder of the jagged edge of fear clawing at her heart. She rushed to the door, peering through the peephole. All she saw was the murky, swirling shadows of the evening, twisting between the trees. Just a figment of her imagination, she thought. But the knot in her stomach tightened. It's nothing, she whispered, hoping to convince herself. Yet, unease wrapped itself around her like a vice. Rachel's day was already fraught with chaos, juggling the demands of her 2 children, Sophie and Jake, while fighting to make ends meet. And now, a sinister shadow hovered over her, a reminder that something was very wrong. Returning to the kitchen, she tuned her ears to the youthful laugh of her kids playing in the next room, fighting to drown out her fears. But the light-heartedness felt wrong against the backdrop of the nagging knocks. Days turned into weeks of whispered suspicions and alarming events. The once friendly patrol officer, Officer Miller, brushed her off with a chuckle, claiming maybe it was just the spooky old house that terrified her. The old, abandoned school at the end of the block seemed to taunt her, its broken windows like empty eyes staring back. She noticed the unease growing among the neighbors, especially after Mrs. Thompson's inexplicable disappearance. The laughter and camaraderie that once filled the streets felt replaced by a suffocating fog of dread. Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, those knocks echoed again, hammering at her door like a funeral drum, chilling her blood. Trembling, she clenched the doorknob, thoughts of escape racing through her mind. What was on the other side? Shadows danced as she flicked on the porch light, illuminating the dark with weak warmth. And then she saw it, a vague shadow darting into the hedges. Panic ignited. Ignoring her instinct to retreat, she bolted forward, heart thrumming in her chest. Bounding towards the abandoned school, she felt the ground buckle beneath her. Boxing herself in with fear, she stumbled into the dilapidated shell. Inside was a chilling world, echoes of laughter twisted into cries. The hallways once bright with youth were draped in shadows, reminiscent of screams painted in rust. Cold sweat coated her skin as the suffocating darkness closed in all around her. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every creak echoing in the hall, she felt the impending presence stalking her, a figure wrapped in the threads of her past. Breath hitching, adrenaline shot through her, blurring the lines between reality and folklore. The horror creeping upon her was no random stranger, it wove itself into the very fabric of her history, her family's legacy. As the shadows whispered and the air grew tense, Rachel stood at the edge of a terrifying cliff, heart pounding as she realized the truth. Could this nightmare truly be a part of her own blood? With uncertainty crashing down, she was left wondering who could she trust when the horror that hunted her was intrinsically linked to her life. A chill swept through the abandoned school, wrapping around Rachel like icy fingers. Her heart thudded loudly against her ribcage, desperation clawing at her throat. In the suffocating stillness, every creak of the rotting wood echoed, mocking her presence. Shadows flickered against the peeling walls, teasing her from the corners of her vision. She could almost hear laughter, fragile and distant, reminiscent of memories she couldn't place. Get it together, she whispered to herself, though the words barely masked her rising panic. She could almost hear her kids' giggles, fading too quickly, as if they too had been swallowed by the darkness. Fear swallowed her whole as she took a hesitant step further into the hallway, the musty scent of forgotten years assaulting her senses. A shudder passed through her, a memory lined with dread. The old stories whispered by the neighborhood kids flashed through her mind. The myths clinging to the school, of disappearances and restless souls wandering the halls, ghostly figures dimming laughter into screams. It was all an urban legend, wasn't it? Just then, disaster struck. A loud clatter rang out from the room at the far end of the hall. Rachel froze. She didn't want to investigate. She wanted to run, but her legs felt like lead. She forced herself to move, each step echoing her mounting dread. The knocking from before flared in her memory, cold and relentless, as she pressed on. The door creaked open with a low groan as she approached, revealing a room engulfed in darkness. It was filled with moldering chairs and old desks, each cast in an eerie stillness. The air was thick and held an unshakable weight. Rachel strained her ears, clinging on to the faintest sounds, a voice perhaps? Then she heard it, a gentle whisper, barely audible, but it sent a jolt through her. "Help me." Her heart lurched. Was that a child's voice? But which child? Rachel's stomach dropped. It could be one of her kids trapped here. She couldn't chance it. Desperately, she called out, "Sophie? Jake?" Her own voice felt fragile and betrayed her trembling resolve. Silence answered her, stretching painfully. Taking a deep breath, she entered the room, every instinct telling her to turn and flee. She was stepping deeper into the abyss. Suddenly, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket, almost causing her to scream. She fumbled for it, barely rationalizing what she was doing. The screen lit up, revealing a message from an unknown number. "They're close. Don't let them see you." The words sliced through her heart like a blade. A shadow flickered at the back of the room. Wide-eyed, Rachel turned slowly, dread pooling in her chest. A figure emerged, tall and cloaked in darkness, face obscured. Panic gripped her. Without thinking, she bolted back down the hall, the air heavy with the scent of decay. Slipping through the door, she turned to escape, but the shadow darted closer, its breath warm and sickly on her skin. Each footfall thundered in her ears, and an alien voice hissed her name. "Rachel," she shoved open the nearest door, plunging into chaos. Broken mirrors glimmered, reflecting distorted versions of herself, fear-filled and wild-eyed. She pressed back against the wall, praying to blend into the fading light. Desperate, Rachel searched for a way out, but the sounds of her children's laughter twisted into a symphony of anguish, as the shadow lurked just beyond her reach. What did it want from her? As the darkness loomed closer, the walls felt like they were closing in, suffocating her spirit. "Leave me alone." She cried out, but her voice was drowned in malevolent echoes. In that moment, a single thought pierced her mind: maybe the truth was more horrifying than the shadow itself. What if this journey became a reckoning? A final confrontation with the terror rooted deep in her family's past that tied her to this nightmare? Just then, a deafening crash shattered the branch of stillness. She whipped around. Had something breached the threshold? And why did it feel like a twisted déjà vu? Rachel could barely breathe. She had to uncover the dark secret before it consumed her completely. But what if it was already too late? The frenzy of footsteps echoed in Rachel's ears, pounding like a war drum. Her heart raced, but her thoughts were a chaotic blur. She rushed through the room, desperate to put distance between herself and the lurking shadow. What had she stumbled into? With every door she passed, the weight of dread clawed at her senses, dragging her down. She squeezed through the other door, landing in a corridor dimly lit by sporadic ghostly light. The faint glow revealed rows of dusty lockers, each one bearing the scars of time. A chilling draft slithered across her skin, but Rachel had no time to think about the cold. A wave of instinct drove her deeper into the school away from whatever was chasing her. "Jake! Sophie!" she called, her voice trembling and hoarse. Each echo felt like a failure, her search growing more futile with every breath. She pressed on, glancing back as the darkness behind her rippled, shadowy fingers stretching closer and closer. As she ran, the whispers began again, hushed voices that seemed to rise from the ground itself. Rachel helped. They twisted through the air like smoke, chilling her blood. Who were they? Why did they sound like the voices of her children? Panic consumed her, muting the memory of her children's laughter, warping it into something monstrous. She hurried into the nearest classroom. Inside, the air was stale, stinging her nostrils. Desks were overturned, papers strewn about like fallen leaves in a storm. But there was no time to consider the chaotic mess. She spotted a window at the far end. It might be her escape. Without a second thought, she rushed to it, her heart cracking with hope. As she fumbled with the latch, a piercing scream erupted from behind. "No!" Rachel shouted, the sound tearing from her throat. She spun around. The shadow had followed her, seeping into the room like dark smoke. Its form twisted, morphing into something scarcely human, grotesque with jagged edges that threatened to swallow her whole. The whispering escalated into a cacophony of rage and despair, drowning her in a wave of anguish. "Help us!" the chorus echoed in her mind, thrumming with sorrow that felt achingly familiar. Searing panic ignited her limbs. She yanked at the window again, her fingers trembling. "Stop! I have to get out!" she shouted, her voice trembling. The shadow lunged forward, and in that split second, she saw what lay beneath the darkness, a flicker of wide, terrified eyes. "Your children!" It breathed, the sound scraping her exposed nerves. "They need you." Time slowed. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. The memory of their faces washed over her, their smiles, promises made during countless bedtime stories. But amidst those visions, she saw flashes of an old wound, a secret she had buried deep, a family trauma linked to this very school, and a forgotten promise that might lead to their redemption. With a final push, her hand broke the window's latch and sent shards of glass raining down. The cold night air blasted inward as she leaped through, her body propelled by desperation. But as she landed heavily in the overgrown grass outside, horror struck. The realm of shadows poured from the school like a tidal wave, glistening like obsidian under the pale moonlight. Rachel turned to flee, but was halted by the sight of a figure standing in the doorway. A child she knew too well. Sophie? But the face that looked back at her held no warmth. It was filled with sadness, and the words that came next shattered her world. "Mommy, I've been waiting for you." Rachel froze, paralyzed in a nightmare that was spinning closer to her soul's darkest edge. The air crackled with an ominous dread, as though the whole school held its breath in anticipation of what she would do next. What was real? What was an illusion? The darkness was not done with her yet. Just then, a piercing cry echoed from inside the school, ripping through the night. It was her son's voice. "Help me!" And with that haunting plea, Rachel felt the terror creep deeper, wrapping around her heart like a vice. She had to decide, was she willing to face the curse that bound them, or would she let the shadows claim them all? Was she ready to unearth that which was better left buried? Rachel's heart thundered in her chest, the sound competing with the chilling whispers swirling around her. She took a step forward, her body frozen between the agony of choice and the instinct to flee. In the doorway, Sophie's face shimmered oddly, the ghostly glow illuminating her delicate features, highlighting the profound sadness overshadowing her innocence. "Mommy!" Sophie's voice trembled, a soft snare laced with an unnatural echo. "You promised." Rachel's vision blurred, memories clawing at her. A promise made long ago, one to protect her children from harm, even at her own expense. Yet the shadows slithered at the edges of her reason like a serpent, whispering doubts. Was this truly her daughter? Or was it a trap, another layer of the horror that enveloped the school? "Stop!" she shouted, unsure if she was commanding the shadows or her own fear. "Where's Jake?" The figure faltered for a brief moment. "He needs you, too." The word slithered through the air, dark and heavy, filling Rachel with instinctual dread. "Can't you see? This isn't real." Rachel screamed, gripping her head as the memories piled high: date nights, family dinners, laughter that once filled their home. The hollow echo of her children's joy only deepened her anguish now. Was it too late to redeem herself? In a flash, the shadow sprung forth, tendrils of darkness swirling wildly around her, swirling through the air in a grotesque dance. The air thickened as dread pressed down like a weight on her chest. The whispers grew louder, drowning out the sounds of night, leaving her trembling with fear. "Rachel," they melted like ice, freezing her blood. "We're waiting," and in that moment of paralyzing clarity, she made her choice. She sprinted toward Sophie. "I'll save you both," she cried out, arms reaching for the apparition, desperate to pull her daughter to safety. Yet as she approached, Sophie's features twisted. The sweet child morphed, her face becoming a mask of sorrow. "Mommy, help me." She extended a pale hand, her plea shredding through Rachel's resolve. A sharp gasp escaped Rachel's lips as she stumbled back. The shadow behind them writhed, hungry and eager, closing in with an insatiable thirst. "You should have stayed away," it hissed, the depth of its voice echoing with sorrowful rage. "No!" Rachel cried, defiance surging through her. "You won't have them." She spun, facing the entrance of the school once more, the vortex of darkness swirling closer. She had to get to Jake, she had to break this twisted promise. Time slipped through her fingers like sand as she darted towards the door. The ground trembled beneath her, but she pushed past the heavy gusts of despair. More voices joined, cacophony spiraling through her psyche. Searching. Somewhere inside, Rachel could feel the weight of Jake's presence, an anguished call echoing in her mind. "Help me, Mommy." The darkness set its sights on her retreating figure, shadowy arms reaching out, grasping and clawing. She felt fingers brush against her skin, with every touch pulling at her soul. Yet amidst the onslaught, she clamped down on a single thought: a beacon. If she could reach him, just reach him, and then the school's front doors loomed before her, dark and foreboding. She pushed through, stumbling into the open. But just as she crossed the threshold, everything stilled, the frantic whispers fading into a heavy silence. The moonlight never felt so cold against her skin. "Mommy?" Sophie echoed behind her, pulling her back, a shadow of hope starting to dim. Rachel turned, dread pooling in her stomach. The figure remained, already shifting again, twisting into the darkness surrounding the school, looming ominously over the overgrown grass. The cry from inside rang out once more, echoing through the night. "Help me, help me." Terror surged. Rachel was taut like a drawn bowstring. She mustered every ounce of courage, but the shadows moved, slowly weaving between her and the door, blurring reality and nightmares. As she shuddered at the weight of that familiar plea, she was forced to confront a chilling truth: shadows are not born. They are created. Was she truly prepared to delve into the depths of horror, to face the pain she had buried for so long? The choice narrowed. She stepped toward the darkness once more, heart pounding, but would she unravel the mystery, or would it enfold her eternally? The air crackled again as the darkness stirred, laughing softly at her resolve. Would she turn back, or would she finally face the demons of her past? Rachel's breath came in sharp gasps as she lingered at the threshold of the school, her heart pounding like a frantic drum. Shadows danced just beyond the reach of the moonlight, their forms distorting as if savoring the frenzy of her panic. The heavy silence was broken only by the distant call of Jake, a desperate echo that twisted Rachel's gut into knots. "Mommy, please. I need you." A cold shiver crept through her, catching her off guard, freezing her in place. For a heartbeat, it felt as if the very ground might swallow her whole. The darkness shifted again, coiling tighter around the periphery of her vision. It beckoned, promising answers and tempting her fears. Shadows sprawled like long, gnarled fingers, clawing their way toward her. "Come find him, Rachel," they hissed, mellifluous and taunting. "Come home to your true self." Something deep inside her flickered. A desire to flee clawed and scraped at her mind, but the pull of her son's voice, raw and aching, anchored her feet to the soil. She turned her back on the door, feeling the cold eyes of the school upon her as she stepped back into the dark corridor. With each tentative step deeper into the gloom, the air seemed to thicken, the darkness swirling around her like fog. The shrieks of despair that once flooded her ears receded, leaving only the oppressive sound of her heartbeat drumming in her ears. She shivered, the walls closing in as she moved towards the echoing pleas. "Mommy. Closer now." More frantic. "Hold on, Jake. I'm coming." Fighting through the despair, she ventured forward, tracing the sound, each moment weighed down by memories of laughter and love. The closer she got, the more the darkness recoiled, a living thing reacting to her resolve. Shadows wrapped around her legs like serpents, snaking up her body with their icy touch. Help me, the voice was so close, it felt like a knife plunging into her heart. She stumbled, falling to her knees, gasping for breath as the cold spread through her limbs. "Please." It pleaded again. This time, it morphed into a scream. "Jake!" she cried, desperation coursing through her. She forced herself to stand, pushing against the darkness that threatened to envelop her. She couldn't let him down. Not again. As she moved further into the thick haze, something shifted. A corridor opened up ahead, wide and dark, a void welcoming her. The walls seemed to pulse, leaving behind a sickly sweet scent that curled in the back of her throat. She hesitated, feeling a tremor of fear ripple through her. This felt wrong. But his voice danced along the still air. "Mommy, I'm right here." Gritting her teeth, she pressed on. A flicker of light appeared in the distance, illuminating the hallway ahead. Hope flickered inside her. But as she made her way toward it, the temperatures plummeted, drawing closeness to terror. An icy chill wrapped around her throat like a noose. "You should go back, Rachel," a low whisper came from just behind her, curling through the air like smoke. "You know the truth, you're the one they want." She spun, heart racing, but nothing lay behind her, just the darkness, swirling like an insatiable whirlpool. "Help me. Please." That primal scream tore through the air, and she knew she was running out of time. Each step brought her heart closer to shattering as uncertainty gnawed at her soul. Did she dare trust the unknown? The shadows seemed to close in tighter, the voices chasing her down each corridor, urging her to turn back to remember. Was it a trap? What if she found Jake only to lose him to the darkness? Suddenly, a hand emerged from the shadows, reaching out. "Mommy. You came." The brightness enveloped Rachel, filling her with warmth. But that warmth twisted, revealing twisted laughter echoing. "Join us, Rachel," who was truly reaching out for her? In that chilling moment, she had to choose. To trust and step into the light, or flee the grasping claws of shadows. But the ghosts of her past danced dangerously near, leaving Rachel trembling. Could she rescue her son without losing herself? With her heart placed on the precipice of darkness and light, she took a deep breath, pushing forward into the beckoning, flickering light. The light rushed toward Rachel like a tide, its warmth trapping her. She could feel her heart rear back, a contradiction of hope and dread clawed at her mind. It thrummed with the insistent beat of Jake's plea, growing louder but more distorted, echoing through a hall of broken promises and frayed edges. As she hesitated, the outstretched hand seemed to morph. The fingers twisted, squirming like worms wriggling through dirt. "Mommy," it called, but the voice felt off, a cruel parody of the joy she'd once known. In that moment, dread gripped her throat, the shadows all around began to writhe, dark tendrils lashing out as if sensing her uncertainty. "Turn back." A taunting whisper followed her through the light, echoing off walls that shifted like reflections in a broken mirror. The warmth felt like a lure, but the air thickened, stifling any breath left within her. "Jake!" she shouted, hoping the sound of his name would split through the ominous cocoon. Desperation propelled her forward. She pressed her fingers against the inviting glow, feeling a pulse that resonated with her own heart. But there was a chill, a needling sensation sliding down to her core, that made her blood run cold. What was this light truly? No sooner had she lunged toward it than the brightness flickered. Darkness surged forward, swallowing the glow whole. Rachel screamed as the shadows swallowed her. For a moment, she felt herself drifting in a void, weightless and bewildered. Then, with a jolt, the world twisted back into focus. She was standing in a narrow hallway, walls lined with flaking paint, a heavy scent of mildew prickling nostrils. The flickering of fluorescent lights cast an erratic glow, harsh and sickening. The air felt charged, alive with whispers clawing at her ears. "Mommy, over here!" She turned, startled. It was Jake's voice again, but everything felt different. The hallway stretched on, and with each syllable, it twisted, spiraling her deeper. Shadows lurked in the corners, swelling up as if they were waiting. "Mommy!" The cry struck her like a whip, and she rushed toward it, instinctively following the sound. But something was wrong. The hall seemed to grow longer, the whispers amplifying, morphing into something grotesque. "Stay with us," they hissed, sending icy fingers crawling up her spine. Rachel felt a wave of nausea as the haunting tone pulled her, an ungodly cacophony enticing her to stay, to join them in their eternal shadow. "Jake!" she shouted again, voice cracking. But the response was different this time, a deep, rumbling laugh that echoed off the walls. "You cannot save him," the abyss taunted. "He is part of us now." Panic surged, clenching her stomach. Heart racing, she crouched low, determined to dig deeper into the hall of horrors, lungs burning with each labored breath. Could she outsmart whatever torment awaited? "I won't leave you!" she screamed defiantly, flinging herself forward as the shadows reached out, their fingers brushing against her skin like cold fire. Then, she noticed it. A glimmer at the far end of the abyss, a pale figure, shimmering ghost-like against the encroaching darkness. His movements were jerky, face obscured but undeniably familiar. "Jake?" Her voice barely found breath. "Is it really you?" In a heartbeat, the figure turned, eyes wide, filled with a pleading light that struck straight through Rachel's fading hope. But almost instantly, it warped, the brightness wavering, shifting back into something sinister, something neither human nor benevolent. "Help me!" Now it was a cry tinged with terror, and Rachel felt herself reeling back, caught between fear and love. Yet the damnable shadows wrapped tighter around her, pulling her toward the horror. "Join me, Mommy," the voice echoed, morphing into a chorus that enveloped her world. There was laughter, a roar of darkness, and she was fading again. A sudden realization hit. She had to decide. Was this Jake pleading, or was it the ultimate trick? Could she really free him, or would she plunge into darkness herself? With a trembling heart, she whispered an answer to the void, "No. I refuse." Her words sliced through the cacophony, igniting a spark of courage. But as the shadows embraced her, it felt like a mistake, a rush of despair mixed with defiance. Could she shatter these chains before it was too late? Just then, a new voice broke through the chaos, a voice filled with ancient authority. "Only the true light can save him, and you." Fear squeezed around her like a vice. Who had spoken? What dark game was being played? As she faced that unfathomable darkness, heart racing, she demanded, "Show me the truth." The shadows recoiled as if they'd been burned by her demand. For a split second, time seemed to pause, the air thick with tension. The darkness, once ravenous, hesitated. A low rumble echoed through the hollow space like the growl of some ancient beast awakening. Then, the darkness lurched and twisted, materializing into shapes that twisted at the edges of her sanity. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat a desperate reminder that she was still alive, still there, clinging to hope in the face of insurmountable dread. True light, the voice reverberated, now undeniably close. Renewal comes with sacrifice. Rachel's mind raced. What sacrifice? What kind of price would she have to pay? Images flashed through her head: Jake smiling, running through the park, chubby hands covered in dirt, eyes wide with wonder. But the moment twisted, darkening like ink spilled across paper. She could see the shadows coiling around him, their fingers curling possessively, claiming him as one of their own. Jake! Her voice was stronger now, infused with desperate grit. I'll find you. The corridor warped again, warping under the strain of her resolution. Walls shifted, bending as if they hadn't always been there, revealing a door wooden, weathered, and cracked. It emanated an energy that felt different. Warmth pulsed through the cracks, a faint illumination spilling into the gloom. Go to it, the voice urged, now softer, promising. You know what must be done. Rachel's instincts screamed at her to reconsider, to retreat from the beckoning light that felt both inviting and haunting. The fingers of darkness gripped her tighter, threatening to pull her back into their clutches. She shivered, lungs tight with fear. But the image of Jake flickered in her mind once more, and a wave of determination surged. Still, as she approached the door, an oppressive weight descended, the kind that wrapped around shoulders and ignited claustrophobic dread. She could hear whispers now, a cacophony rising again. Leave now, you don't belong here. No! She shouted, fists clenched, voice raw. You can't have him. I won't give up. With a burst of defiance, Rachel threw open the door. Brightness spilled from inside, radiant and blinding, washing over her. She shielded her eyes, but there was no denying the warmth beckoning from within. As it wrapped around her, the flickers of shadow began to fade, their laughter transforming into shrieks of rage. Foolish woman! The deep rumble thundered, filled with venom. You don't know the storm you unleash. Just as the glow enveloped her, a figure lunged through the door, the pale gleam flickering again like a faulty bulb. It was Jake, eyes wide with terror and desperation. He reached for her. Mommy! Help me! Frozen between dread and the flickering light, Rachel felt the world teeter. The shadows shrieked, and the air thickened, becoming nearly unbearable. She could see it now, dark hands gripping Jake's shoulders, pulling him back into the abyss. Jake! Her scream was raw, tearing from the depths of her soul. But the light flickered again, and darkness surged like a monstrous tide, pressing in from all sides. Rachel lunged forward, reaching, stretching her arms until it felt like her bones would splinter. There was a moment, a heartbeat suspended in time. Would he be pulled back into the dark, or could she grasp the hope held in that shimmering light? Then, just as fingers grazed his, a sudden crack, like thunder, split the air. The walls trembled with foreboding as the whispers morphed into a deafening roar. Shadows writhed violently, swirling towards them like a vortex, threatening to swallow everything whole. Only one will survive. The deep voice thundered, shaking the very foundation of her will. Rachel's heart raced frantically. A choice loomed in the chaos, one that would decide their fate. The light flashed dangerously, as she caught a glimpse of Jake's pleading face. It was a horrifying mirror of both love and fear. In a single breath, she prepared to confront whatever darkness awaited her, knowing she might have to pay a price. Could she find the true light, or would the final moment of rescue plunge them both into eternal night? The light surged brightly before her, illuminating the corridor with an ethereal glow. It felt almost alive, inviting. But the shadows fought back fiercely, spiraling closer, their twisted forms contorting like primal beasts yearning to reclaim what they had lost. Time seemed to snap back, jerking Rachel into a moment painfully stretched by despair and terror. Only one will survive. It echoed in her mind like a death knell. With that terrifying proclamation hanging in the air, Rachel's eyes narrowed sharply. She could feel the pull of darkness, cold, slimy fingers grazing her skin, enticing her to relent. Sweat dripped down her brow, staining her vision as she fought against the pull that threatened to unmoor her resolve completely. "Stay with me, Jake," she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. "Just hold on." Jake's cries were muffled beneath the roar of darkness, the sound a chaotic symphony of anguish. "Mommy!" he wailed, terror vibrating through the air that found no avenue for escape. But as Rachel took a staggering step forward, the warmth from the door whispered into her, promising safety, shelter from the storm. It meant freedom for Jake, freedom from this malevolent nightmare. But she was acutely aware of the cost that promise might exact. "No!" she bellowed, the word a weapon now. She planted her feet firm, willing herself to become a bulwark against the colliding forces of light and dark. "You can't take him. I won't let you." Shadows slithered across the ground, dark tendrils reaching for her, as if trying to erase her defiance. For every inch she gained toward Jake, the shadows pulled him closer into their nightmarish skin. It was a chilling sight, watching her son being so easily claimed by the void. "Rachel!" The voice was no longer merely a murmur. It had transformed into a sinister blend of growls and hisses, slithering over her skin, urging her to relinquish her child. "Sacrifice is essential. The light can only exist with a price, and it knows you will pay." The darkness throbbed, vibrant and full of malevolent life. A ripping sound split the air as shadowy tendrils began slicing through the bright light, and Rachel felt her courage waver. Then she saw it. A flicker of something within the bright light. A silhouette, familiar, emerging but different. The glow twisted, revealing a monstrous version of Jake, shadowed and warped, a sinister grin stretching across his face. "Help me!" he cried, but his voice, it didn't carry the innocence she knew. It was tainted, laced with malice, a mockery of his true self. Rachel's heart raced wildly, pounding against her chest with an urgency that threatened to explode. No, no, no. She felt nausea twist in her stomach, this new image replacing her cherished memories of him. "That's not you. You're not him. Get away." A heart-piercing roar erupted from the shadows, exploding into a whirlwind of noise. The remnants of Jake's pleas swirled into a hideous cacophony that enveloped her, making her tremble. Was it truly him, or some horrific illusion designed to ensnare her? With an anguished scream, she flung herself forward, straining to grip the warmth of her son amidst the storm. Each step burned like hot coals against her skin, the darkness clawing at her heels, threatening to devour her whole. "Choose, Rachel." The voice thundered, a complete storm of hatred and desire. "Only one can take the light. You know what fate awaits you and him." In that split-second moment, the chilling reality surfaced: one of them would be forsaken. Rachel's breaths quickened, choking on emotions too raw to name. Could she confront the truth that keeping Jake meant losing herself? Tears streamed down her cheeks as she faced the blinding light and the writhing darkness, red and maddening. But just when she thought she understood the choice, everything dimmed. The door wobbled as shadows converged like a tidal wave, drowning every bit of hope. Rachel knew she had to act. But which choice would leave her whole? "Help me." Jake's voice echoed once more, distorting through the torrent. It became her only anchor. Would she enter, or would the darkness snatch him first? The air crackled as the shadows lunged forward, Rachel bracing for the torment ahead, heart pounding louder than ever. Would she discover how to truly save Jake before it was too late? The darkness surged, a tempest of fury clawing at her mind. Each shadow twisted, contorting into nightmares that shimmered with wicked intent. Rachel's vision blurred, not just from the heat of terror that enveloped her, but from the suffocating weight of despair. Every ounce of her being was drawn toward Jake, who writhed within the dark clutches, a fragile figure against the obsidian tide. Jake! She reached desperately, fighting against invisible chains that wrapped around her heart. But with each inch she gained, the darkness tightened its grip. Blood surged in her ears, a frantic drumbeat of dread. The voice that had howled her name now morphed, echoing around her like a deadly choir. You are his only salvation and his doom. It taunted, a grotesque amusement dancing upon its words. A broken sob threatened to escape her lips as she fought to understand what surrender would mean. No. Rachel shook her head, clawing through the chaos for any glimmer of hope. There had to be something, some escape. Her mind flashed back to nights spent reading stories of bravery, of heroes who stood against the tide. She was more than the sum of her fears. But the creeping anxiety chipped away at her resolve. In her heart, a dilemma cut deeper than blades. The light flickered, promising grace, but at what cost? Suddenly, Jake's voice pierced through the tumult again, clearer this time, as if a small beacon of light amidst the shadows. Mommy. Please. I can't hold on. Rachel's soul screamed. I'm coming. Just hold on. You need to believe in me. As she charged forward, blurring the boundaries of rational thought, snippets of memories began to pulse in her mind: laughter, bedtime stories, the smell of his hair after a bath. The anguish twisted in her gut. What if he was right? What if the shadows had already consumed what made him whole? A visage shot forth from the dark Jake's south-warped face close to her own, the twisted grin etched with malice. You can join me, Mommy. We can be together forever. Stop. She cried, choking on rebellion. This was no longer just about survival, it was a bloody war for his soul. Screams and whispers intertwined, spiraling into a cacophony that sought to drain her spirit. Every breath felt like inhaling shards of glass. Rachel fought past the shadows that whispered darkness into her heart. I love you, Jake, she breathed, pushing fear aside. You're real. I believe in you. The air thickened, quaking as a bright pulse illuminated the corridor. The shadows howled in protest, their forms flickering like dying flames. The light surged again, wrapping around her as if calling with open arms. But from behind, serpentine tendrils reached out with visceral hunger. They wanted her, they wanted everything. Join us, they hissed, grating over her skin like nails on chalkboard. You can save him at a price. Rachel could feel her strength waning, a deep-seated thermos of dread boiling over. She turned, at that moment, barely aware of the shadows contorting and writhing, blocking her path to Jake. He stood there, lost in a void far too vast, and tears streamed down his face, a blend of courage and terror. The words slipped from her lips before she could grasp the weight of them. I will save you, but I need you to fight. In that agonizing moment, the light clashed with the darkness, a tempest of raw power crashing around her. With a cry that shook the very foundations of her spirit, Rachel dove toward him, fighting against the tides, her heart ready to burst. But as her hands reached out, shadows coiled tighter, consuming her, and then everything went black. The silence that followed was oppressive, heavy against her chest. Alone. Had she failed him? Then, distinct laughter echoed in the darkness, a voice unmistakably familiar yet tainted with bitterness. You did this, Rachel. Your choice is sealed and so is his. As the laughter faded, an unsettling chill filled the void. What had she done? And who else stood to lose? The darkness enveloped Rachel, wrapping around her like a shroud, suffocating and complete. Her heart pounded wildly as she felt herself being pulled away, memories of a familiar laughter twinkling in her mind like stars in the abyss. Somewhere, she knew, Jake was still trapped in that nightmare, the sun she'd fought so hard to save now a flicker of light receding in the distance. No! She screamed, voice hoarse and raw, battling against an unseen force that sought to drag her further into the void. The shadows twisted like serpents, hissing their contempt. "I won't leave you, Jake." With a burst of defiance, she thrust her arms out, invoking every memory of love and warmth that had ever colored her life with hope. Each image in her mind shimmered a crude yet reassuring light in the consuming darkness. It was those moments that had to anchor her, they had to be tangible enough to pull her back to him. "Jake!" she called again, injecting every ounce of strength into his name. "You have to fight. Come back to me." Suddenly, a soft glow flickered at the corner of her vision. It was small, fragile, but it was there, a beacon of hope illuminating the oppressive dark. Rachel propelled herself forward, feeling the tendrils of shadow lash out, snatching at her desperation, trying to pull her back. She grit her teeth, memories surging like tidal waves, fueling her resolve. "I love you. And I believe in you." The glow intensified, revealing the spectral figure of her son standing resolute against the encroaching shadows, his face a mosaic of fear, love, and determination. He seemed to hear her, eyes growing wide with recognition, hope flickering back to life. "Mommy. I'm scared." "I know, buddy. But we can fight this together. You have to hold on." The shadows recoiled, shrieking as the light surged brighter, threatening to break the grip they had woven so tightly around her son. This moment felt strangely familiar, like an echo from another life, a promise made to always protect them. Rachel felt the fierce warmth of that promise as the two figures quickly formed a tether, a child and his mother bound together, woven seamlessly into the fabric of their unyielding love. "Fight them, Jake. You can do this. You're stronger than their whispers," Rachel urged, pouring her heart into her words. The shadows wailed as the light enveloped both of them, a force rivaling the darkness that sought to consume them. Suddenly, the shrieking demons faltered, shadows trembling at the introduction of such fervent light. And then, the chaos erupted, the dark forms exploded outwards, revealing deep cracks in their menacing world, sending shards of darkness cascading away like a broken glass mirror. "What is this?" A voice boomed, a blend of dismay and rage blending as one. You can't fight us." But Rachel stood tall, clutching Jake's hand tightly. Together, they radiated resilience. "We can, and we will." The darkness screamed impotently as the bright light surged through the school, illuminating the forgotten corners where echoes of haunting laughter had been hidden for so long. The raw energy of love crushed the shadows, exposing their twisted forms, revealing that they were indeed remnants of Rachel's own fear, her own unhealed scars from the past. "Remember the love, Jake. Remember the laughter," she cried, the memories flooding back, a torrent of joy and safety bursting forth. The warm glow embraced them, breaking through the veil of despair, crushing the ancient curses that had taken root within the darkened halls. And suddenly, a sharp light pulsed in front of them, strong and unwavering. For an instant, the world around them shifted. The haunted school faded away, revealing a garden bathed in sunlight, filled with laughter, children playing freely, devoid of fear. Rachel turned, breath catching in her throat as she realized there was no darkness here. Her eyes met Jake's, filled with that childlike wonder, no longer clouded by shadows. He smiled, the warmth of their home igniting within her, the echoes of past traumas fell silent. "Mommy, we did it!" he exclaimed, bubbling with joy. "Yes," Rachel whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks, tears of relief, of hope, and of love. "We did it together." As they embraced, the distant memories of tragedy began to fade from her heart, replaced by the unyielding strength of their bond. Whatever haunted them was imprisoned forever in the shadows they had vanquished. Together, they turned towards the horizon, arms linked, ready to face whatever the world would bring, side by side. And just before the memories of the dark school faded entirely, Rachel took a breath, feeling lighter than she had in years. They were free. They were whole. The past was behind them now. "Don't forget to smile, Jake," she added, feeling an inner light connecting them both. "We can fill our lives with laughter from now on." With that, they stepped forward into a brand new chapter, hand in hand, hearts united in unwavering spirit. This was their moment. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating their path ahead, Rachel knew that wherever they went next, they would always carry the light with them. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now, and this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.